Hey, welcome to Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and as a leader of the pack, as always, I am out on the trail looking for tips, things you can use, other entrepreneurs that are sharing their journey along the ways you're scaling your business in these crazy economic times we find ourselves in. Today, we have a special guest. We have with us Linda Shively. She has been featured in Wall Street Journal. She's a best-selling author and award-winning speaker and neuroscience and mindset expert. She's presented across the country at places like New York City Bar Association, the Harvard Club of Boston, Walmart, and Carnegie Hall. Imagine that. Carnegie Hall. My gosh. Linda's been a multiple time guest and host on cable television. She's featured in a movie with Winona Ryder and Jeff Daniels, and even performed at the Rose Bowl for over 90,000 people. She works with growth-minded professionals, and even royalty have sought her out to decrease the stress and overwhelm in their lives by eliminating their self-sabotaging patterns. I know you don't experience that in your life, but perhaps someone on your team might. I'm excited to introduce San Francisco Bay Area native, master practitioner of NLP, that's neuro-linguistic programming, executive coach, and certified laughter yoga leader, Linda Shively. Linda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Wow, what an introduction. What a background. I am so glad to have you here today. And as we were talking about during the pre-show, one of the keys is the difference between joy and happiness. And I'd like to dive right in with that if I could. You know, what is the difference between joy and happiness? Because something I've experienced in my life has been the more I focus on happy, the more problems I seem to create for myself.
Well, the big difference between happiness and joy that I've experienced is happiness often is something external to us, something that we're looking forward to a particular event. We're looking forward to being with a certain person. Some outside aspect happens, and it either we take that to be happy or sad or some other emotion. Joy, however, underlies everything.
Okay.
And it can be present even when something maybe goes wrong, even when something, when you are happy, you can also have joy. And when you're sad, you can have joy.
So that doesn't have that qualifier of getting something or achieving something or having an outcome that I put a value judgment on.
It's more of an internal, at least the way I have experienced it and the way I see it.
Okay. No, I appreciate that because it's just mindset is everything from a leadership perspective. And being able to focus on joy, on removing blocks, particularly with that, I was teasing, as you're watching this, I was teasing you when I said you probably haven't experienced that because let's be honest, you have, right? And certainly someone on your team has. So for the leaders that you've worked with, Linda, could you share what some of the common blocks are that you've seen, and perhaps a tip or two on how to move forward, take first steps with removing that?
There are so many different ways that people get in their own way. And I have found that they second guess themselves.
Never done that myself. No.
Yeah, no. But well, before I even do that, these ways that we sabotage ourselves, I've named, and I call them my joy stealing dragons.
Ooh.
And I
love that.
And it's fun because rather than having it be, here's the list of things that people do to themselves, it's like more playful.
Yes.
And each of them has a name. And as I said, they're my dragons. So they're my names. You might have different names for them. But the second guessing Sally. So she wants you to second guess every decision.
Okay. And keeping it fun and playful makes a huge difference.
Exactly.
Right?
And even if you are struggling, even if you know exactly and you make a decision and you're confident about it, then the next day you're like, wait, did I make the right decision? Should I have done that? And she just gets in the way. Then there's no good Nancy. And No Good Nancy wants you to believe that you were not born good enough. It doesn't matter what you do, what you say, you are not good enough. And if you try something, she'll say, don't even bother. You're not worth it. You can't do that. And if you succeed, she'll say, you could have done it better. So perhaps you are familiar with this dragon.
Yes, just a little bit. Oh my gosh.
And the third dragon is Perfect Paula. And Perfect Paula,
I love that.
she wants everything to happen just so.
Right.
Exactly. If it's not perfect, it's not going to get sent. So emails don't get written, books don't get written, corporate documents don't get written, proposals, whatever it is, halts. Those phone calls don't get made because, I don't know exactly what I'm going to say to somebody. And it sabotages your success. The fourth dragon I call Judging Jenny. And Judging Jenny is a complicated dragon because she compares herself to other people, or she makes you compare yourself to other people. And then she judges other people, like has other people judging you or think that other people are judging you when quite frankly, they're too busy comparing themselves to you so that
they're dealing with their own dragons, even though it doesn't it looks like they're focused on you.
Yes. Exactly. And so we get in this tizzy, and social media is a perfect example of Judging Jenny's playground because she's like, oh, goody, all these places that I can sabotage. And the fifth dragon is Overwhelmed Ophelia. And what could you have named a better dragon?
No, not at all. That is.
She wants you to have like a tremendously long to-do list and a packed schedule, never getting everything done because most of it really isn't that important.
And I never know where to start because if I start on this, then I'm missing that. Should I be doing this? Or well, if I'm not doing that over there, then there's this other thing.
And keeping busy. Like,
yeah.
Have you ever been that person or known somebody who says, oh, well, I can't do that. I'm too busy. Oh, I couldn't possibly. I'm too busy. Oh, I have to do this. And I have to do this and this and this and this, as if they have a badge of honor because they're so busy. Yeah. Yes.
I clicked off 50 of those things on my to-do list, but did I make that crucial client call? Tomorrow. I'll get tomorrow.
Exactly. You're familiar with her.
Oh, I really could neither confirm nor deny any Yeah, it resonates so much. 5 dragons. My gosh. So now you actually have an assessment for this. If I can jump ahead a little bit,
please.
So as you're watching this, go to joystealingdragons.com. There's an assessment so you can see, how's this affecting you? Then what? I mean, how do we begin to deal with these dragons, to overcome them?
Well, each of these dragons has a different way that you can address them. And I give you the answer depending on which dragon is most relevant in your life right now when you take the quiz. But some general principles that apply to taming all of them. The first is live a better story. And what do I mean by that? Well, we make meaning out of everything. And a story is simply the meaning that we give it. And meaning controls everything. So if something happens, whatever that is, it could be a tree falls down. What does that mean? I don't know. Did the tree purposely do it? Probably
not. Did it make a sound?
Did it make a sound? It's like, exactly what happened. And you get to tell that story. Oh, it crashed through my house and it tore everything up and it did this and it did that. And it intentionally did that. Did it really?
And that was, I was teasing a friend of mine. I said, as professional speakers, we can gauge every event in our lives by how many more minutes of material does that give us when we're telling our stories.
Exactly.
And if I could, because you have an incredible personal story as well in terms of living a better life, creating a better future for yourself. Could I ask if you'd be willing to share some of that with us?
Of course.
I mean, because this is a key part of your path to doing the work that you're doing today.
So in 2005, I had to make a tough decision. I had to figure out how to escape an abusive marriage with my severely handicapped 3-year-old daughter, Jessica. And Jessica, bright-eyed, happy little girl, loved her toys, her games, and to play at preschool. She loved her friends, and oh my gosh, reading books and stickers. Those were favorites. My marriage, on the other hand, kept me on high alert, and I never knew when he was going to explode. And I kept thinking, well, if I do what he wants, everything will be fine. But that didn't happen, and it didn't work. And no matter what I did, it was always my fault that something wasn't working. And Jessica had a neuromuscular disease called spinal muscular atrophy, which is progressive. And at 3 months, I was told that she wouldn't make it to her first birthday. But with her incredible ability, she was able, strength of a little teeny tiny index finger, she was able to zoom around in a power chair, and she could communicate using a device so that she could express herself, because she had a tube to help her breathe and a tube to help her eat. So she wasn't able to speak like I can. And that joy that she had, I mean, oh my gosh, she brought so much joy into my life. I couldn't keep her in that situation. It wasn't healthy for her, and it definitely wasn't healthy for me. But what was I going to do? She required care that I couldn't provide all on my own. How was I going to do it? I finally figured out what I was going to do. And on a Tuesday afternoon, after I brought her home from preschool, I looked at her nurse and I said, you pack her clothes and her toys. You pack her medical equipment. I'll pack her clothes and toys. And as soon as she wakes up, we're going to escape. And escape we did after a flurry of activity. And exactly 2 weeks later, 2 days after Christmas, I held Jessica in my arms as she took her last breath and died.
That is so heartbreaking.
And I struggled from that moment on. And I didn't know what to do with my life. And it took nearly a decade to get back to who I was. And I realized on that journey that there had been something missing. And that missing component, that missing key, was what affected everything. And that key is true joy. And that's why I talk about the joy-stealing dragons. That's why everything I do is about living in joy. Because when you have that, like I said at the beginning, joy underlies everything. So even if there's grief, even if there's sadness, you can still tap into that. And when you do, anything is possible. And it makes life so much better. What we were just talking about, it's more fun to talk about things when you're having fun than it is when you're really sad. And
Well,
it's not to say stuff it and don't talk about it.
right, right. It's not saying don't
It
deal with it.
definitely got to deal with it. I mean, I
Yes.
worked with counselors, I worked with coaches,
Mm.
I did a tremendous amount of personal development work to get to where I am today, so that now I can help other people on their journeys.
Well, to me, it ties into to life. We need to find those moments, those joyful moments in life. And to the greater extent that we can do that, the more meaning life has, the more purposeful it is, the more that we can contribute. Is that true?
Well said. Because when we make the meaning of our lives, so I used to tell my story in a victim way, which
Mm-hmm.
was not very helpful. And now I tell it in an empowered way because I can take control over that story. I have ownership of that story. It doesn't control me, it doesn't define me. I can use it as a part of my life, but it is not my life. And so that's what I talk about when I talk about living a better story. It's like,
Yes.
what is the meaning that we make, and how do we get to choose what that is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to overcome such tragic circumstances. Um, wow. Well, you just took away my list of excuses. Dag nabbit.
And it's not a comparison. Life is not a
No, 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 it's
comparison.
not.
And
And I poke some fun at it, but
yeah,
it's
but
scale, right? I mean, we all experience
everybody
heartbreak,
experiences, yeah,
tragic circumstances, frustrations, things don't go right. Life throws curveballs at us or smacks us in the head with a pool cue. Don't ask me how I learned that lesson when I was younger. And but it's scaling, right? It's that's something my dad taught me. He goes, look, you're always going to be in the middle. He goes, no matter how good things are, someone's going to have it better. No matter how bad things are, someone's going to have it tougher. Um, but what I experience affects me, right? And I feel that.
yeah,
So everybody has a different scale, even though we experience the same emotions. We all stumble.
exactly. And there have been times when I was stuck and I was not wanting to write a resume because I didn't want another job because I wanted to start my own business. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember a friend of mine, she's like, "Well, why is it so hard to write a resume? You've dealt with a lot of worse things than writing a resume." And I laughed, and it's like, true. It's because I don't want to do it. It's like it's just not what I'm building my business, and that's what's important. And it's like, okay, then that's a good reason. But
Yes,
you know, I
but
I
see,
can't use the oh, it's too hard excuse, because yeah, did that.
right, right. How did you get on the entrepreneurial path yourself?
I wanted to share this story. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that it was powerful. I knew that I could be able to help other people. And initially, I didn't quite know how. And I was back at my corporate job that I had prior to her birth, and went back to it because it was safe. It was familiar. People knew me. And then years went by as I continued to go to trainings and
Yep.
do other things, knowing I wanted to do something different, but I leveraged
Oh,
the vacation time and the
yeah.
income to be able to do what I wanted. And
Because it's not uncommon for people to return to a career path or to make a temporary change, and all of a sudden, 15 years later, they're going, oh, they're kind of looking back, and go, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, well, my temporary was 10 years. So it was like, wait a minute. When I got the 10-year award, I was like, no, that's not what I wanted to be doing. And then I took the leap to start my own business and began to help people. And it's been a journey.
Yes. But which led to being able to articulate the five dragons.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from uh, when I was looking at your introduction, you've worked with people that are performing at very high levels, leaders that are performing at very high levels, you know, experts in their fields that are performing at very high levels, but yet they're still experiencing the same issues that we all do, the five dragons.
Because last I checked, they're still human.
Oh, who knew? Oh my gosh.
That's the key. It's like
It's part of the human condition, huh?
it's like we're human. We have things that don't work the way we want them to. And some people will deny that, oh no, no, no. Everything is good.
Right, right.
Hmm. I
It's fine. It's
there
fine. It's fine.
it's
It's
fine.
fine.
It's fine. Everything is fine.
I'm doing good. It's like, okay, then. It's like a little,
So there are
little twitch.
there's the group of people who need my help, and
Hmm.
then there's the group of people who are ready. And
Yes.
so many
Like,
people may need it, but not everybody is ready. And
this is true. This is true. What has been the key? Have you seen any commonalities amongst those who've been able to get to that point where they're ready that has helped get them to that realization?
they're tired of having life be the way it is.
Mm,
They can't take it anymore. They're often at a place where, wow, I'm already insert age here. You know, I I don't want the rest of my life to go by and still be dealing with whatever happened in my youth or whatever happened as a kid,
sure.
or and feeling pulled of not being able to do what I want and not knowing who I am or not tapping into that or feeling like I have to hide.
Hmm.
And right now we have our cameras on. We're broadcasting to gosh knows how many people. There are
Live,
people
21st century television, live and interactive. Hey, everybody,
exactly.
as you're watching this, I hope you're making notes. We
You
track
know,
the comments. So if you're not asking questions now, ask that question later and we'll make sure it gets answered.
yeah, and people I've talked to entrepreneurs who are wanting to grow their businesses
Mm-hmm.
and are afraid to be seen because they're afraid they're going to
Mm.
be attacked. They're like, no, if I'm seen, then bad things are going to happen. So they turn their cameras off and then they don't call people and they don't do it. And it's like, okay, you're not going to be able to succeed in business if you're not able to be seen.
A
And
consulting firm that I worked for in another career lifetime, we had a client that actually eliminated their entire sales organization as a cost cutting maneuver. Right? It's like talk about not being seen. It made me think of that, right? When we don't, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, when we don't want to be seen, it's like a company taking its entire sales and marketing operation and going, well, we're not going to do that anymore.
wow, I have no words.
It's
Just,
no, it's just, that's a whole, what happened next is a whole nother story, but it's like, really, it's interesting how when we're in the midst of fighting the dragons, but not necessarily completely aware of it, it can lead to making some decisions that later it's easy to look back and go, I really wasn't thinking at that point, was I?
and some of the other ways that people are finding that they can't function the way is the voices
Hmm.
in their head.
Yes.
Maybe you don't have them, but
Oh no, I have a whole raging committee. It's like they argue with each other. Some mornings I wake up and it's like, good, you're awake. We've been having a meeting and we need to talk with you. And it's like, oh, it's going to be one of those days, is it? Okay, well, let's go.
So you get to choose who's on that committee and what if you have a committee, or maybe you send the committee out to lunch and go on a vacation, but who's
bring in the new committee member, Granny G. Go, Granny G. I'll let you handle them because they're all afraid of Granny G.
Got it. But who are you listening to, both inside your head and in your world? Because not everybody has an opinion that you want to take in.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has an opinion, but you get to choose which ones you receive, and having that as an option for yourself is, what I say is choose your voices, because it might be that one of the committee members is somebody, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a childhood bully, maybe it's elementary school teacher, whoever, or an ex, somebody that said something at one point negatively and it lives inside your head. And it doesn't help. And even the most amazing, successful business owners or entrepreneurs have that, at least every once in a while. And actually, I don't know if you're a gardener, but
yes,
are you gardening?
Yeah, we used to do a truck patch when I was growing up. We did it. My parents were from the Depression generation, so they still did a World War II style family victory garden every year.
All right.
And we've carried that tradition on now, not in the kind of scale they did, but we're always plant a few tomatoes and a couple other things.
Within your garden, there are weeds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can chop off the weed, and what happens? It keeps growing.
Yep.
Or you can get it from the root and actually get rid of it altogether. And so I believe in getting rid of the root. Plenty of other people just chop it off.
Sure, it's easier. Slap a coat of paint on it. Looks nice. That's good.
Right, until it starts peeling through, and
paint peels off because it wasn't prepped right, or trim it back. It looks good because but it's green, right? So I just trimmed it level with the ground, so it still looks green. It's really nice. And 2 weeks later, it's like,
exactly,
there it is again.
Exactly. So getting to the root of what's really going on and helping eliminate it quickly and effectively so that people can move forward.
And what does it look like on the other side? Could you give some examples of what's some of the transitions? I mean, you can see the example that you've set in your personal story, in your personal life.
Right. Well, I'll share some other people's examples. I have a client that had been working with a therapist for decades, and she still was struggling with not feeling very good, not having the joy in her life, and being totally overwhelmed by tasks. And after a short period of time working together, she was so excited. I lost count of how many times she said thank you because she said, I had a huge event that I had to coordinate. Normally, I would have been completely overwhelmed. She said, I was crunched, but I wasn't overwhelmed. I was able to get everything done. I was in flow. I was able to move forward. I had fun. I was in joy. It was so amazing. I've had other people who have struggled with relationships and not been able to communicate with a particular family member, and then suddenly have been able to actually reconnect and have a meaningful conversation. Other people in their health, somebody who had been wanting to go for a walk and trying to figure out how to get it into her schedule, but not really doing it. After one of my True Joy Life retreats, she signed up for a 5K and has been training, and it's, I think, next weekend. So
my gosh,
it's like, wow,
good for her.
Yeah. And so,
Could you tell us more about your True Life Joy retreat?
yeah, so I have a retreat. It's a small group of people. So you really
Hmm.
get one-on-one time and bond with the other attendees, completely transform. It's a magical experience. And
So it's very.
when
It sounds like it's very very action oriented. So it's not like a come and sit for a PowerPoint presentation for 2 days.
I guarantee there is no PowerPoint. I swear there
Yay!
is no PowerPoint. There might be a flip chart or two, but there's no
Well, sure.
PowerPoint. And yeah, and
But-
there's outside activities, there's indoor activities,
mhm.
and a beautiful space to
Mm.
live at the place, as opposed to having to commute back and forth and eat there and eat with each other. So, the proverbial breaking bread, sharing a meal together, and it's just a transformative experience.
So it
The
sounds yeah, it sounds like it's truly an opportunity to work on fighting and eliminating the dragons
and you get to be
to
with
gain that
me,
transformation.
like
Yes.
for an extended period of time. I mean, I also have year-long program that you get coaching from me, but it's
Hmm.
not like being in person for that entire time and getting that concentrated, exponential results from that. And so I'm excited to be doing them several times a year.
Sounds like a really impactful event for the people that participate in that.
They have had, I keep checking in with them to see, what else have you noticed? What have you been
Hmm.
finding? And they've been able to improve their relationships with other people and with themselves. And I think the loving themselves is something that
Mm.
was the biggest transformation, is actually appreciating who they are and being willing to show up as themselves, instead of, well, in this aspect of life I'll show you, but I'm going to put on the shell and not really tell you who I am in other aspects of
Sure.
life, and
Sure. It's
actually being
easy to
comfortable.
do that. It's like I go on stage and now I'm Mr. Speaker.
Exactly.
Let me put on my best James Bond act or whatever it is personality that I'm attempting to
Right.
project in
Instead of
people.
just,
Especially, it's good to have my wife in the front row because I can sit and she's rolling her eyes and going, "Oh, I'm doing it again."
yeah, I mean, you can be you a little more amped up on stage, but if you're a
Right.
totally
Right.
different persona, then it may not.
Well,
I mean, it works for some
is that
people,
a
but
common response to the dragons? Did we start to carry those kinds of masks, those kinds of fake personas, if you will?
well, we don't
To
believe in
carry.
ourselves. I mean,
Mm.
a lot of it is that we're always either seeking other people's approval. I mean, that's a common thing, is when somebody is not believing in themselves, it's like, oh, I got to check and make sure it's okay. Make sure, and whether that's in a relationship or whether that's in a work environment, did I do it right? Is it okay? Is this how I'm supposed to market? Is this how I'm supposed to sell? Is this how I'm supposed to say it? Is this how I'm supposed to, whatever it is. And that gets draining for you and for the people that you're with. Being indecisive and not having the confidence to make a decision, that second guessing Sally can really wreak havoc. And to be clear. And so often I find people aren't taking the actions that they want to be taking. They're just caught up. Like you jokingly said, yeah, they get everything done, but they don't do that one key action that really has to happen.
Yeah, I've done that.
And
I've had very busy days, and at the end of the day, I'm looking back and going, there were really 3 critical tasks I need to get today, and I didn't get close to any one of them, and I'm just drained at the end of the day.
yeah. And so knowing what is critical and helping people to actually, what I say, tell time what to do, direct your time to what is important, as
Mhm.
opposed to just diffusing it. Because we can spend time doing lots of things, or we can procrastinate, or we can wait, and things will happen in life that may not serve you And sometimes you think that, oh, I'll just wait on it, and a decision actually gets made because you waited. Like maybe you missed a deadline, so that determined that you didn't get that opportunity, whatever that was. Maybe you waited, and in a relationship, the other person said, okay, well, nothing's happening. I'm going to meet somebody else because, this person that I'm interested in but doesn't seem to be doing anything. Okay, I'll go talk to this other person. Or, for people that want to have a kid and they wait, eventually the biological clock stops ticking. And so if you wait too long, that may not happen in that way. And so knowing how you want to spend your time and what you want to do is another important piece.
Well, in having that ability to experience more joy in life seems to create a positive draft, if you will, like a positive vortex where more people now want to be around that person, want to be part of whether it's, and I tend to look at business and go, look, what kind of business do you want to have? And I've asked entrepreneurs, I go, look, okay, so during the Great Resignation, you've had people quitting. It's like, why should people come to work at your company? Would you want to work there if you were there in your shoes? Let's look at it from that perspective. It also applies to family too, though. What kind of environment are we creating with our immediate and extended family? Is the type of thing where people, because there's always that uncle or aunt or friend of the family where everybody just can't wait until it's their turn to host a holiday dinner because it's so much fun to be around them and to be at their place, to be able to create that for our families, which is even, more important in a lot of ways than the business environment.
Because if you are not happy in your life, what are you doing? I mean,
yes.
And what do you need to change? Because
could I share a quick example? What is one of my favorite stories? I know if you've been watching Wolf's Watch regularly, you've probably heard this before. But there's a company I was working with, and our vice president of operations. I'm sitting across the desk from him because they're laying people off. They have a massive morale problem, and he leans forward and looks at me and goes, "They're not supposed to enjoy it. That's why it's called work." And it's like, oh my God. It hit me in that moment. You could just see how miserable this individual was and the way that was coming across. And there was there's a lot of fears, and he's getting close to retirement. There's all these concerns and fears and frustrations that were weighing down on him, that in his position, he was making everybody else miserable and was fine with that. It's like, wow. And they had already gone from 1,100 down to 300 people, and they were once again doing another cut, attempting to save the company.
Wow. And I'm
they
surprised they had 300 left.
They didn't last too much long after that.
No, but I mean, I'm surprised even the 300 stayed. We like to be around
begs the question of now who stays. If that's the environment, how can you possibly save your company if you're in trouble and you have an environment that nobody wants to work in? You get stuck with the people that either just simply don't care. It's like, okay, for whatever happens, if it ends up failing or I lose my job, so what? I'll just move on. Or the people that don't have any options.
Right.
And that's not who's going to be able to move forward. Do we want to create that environment in our families too? Because that same dynamic may not be as clear, but if it's like oh no, grandma and grandpa are having, are hosting New Year's, what excuses can we come up with this time?
Exactly. It's like if people are avoiding something, whether it's a person or a situation, how can you handle that? And what can you do? And how do you engage in a way that makes it more interesting and more fun? And how do you connect to the people in the way they want to be connected to, not necessarily the way you want to connect? And there are many, many layers. And talking about relationship dynamics is a lot of what we do on my True Joy Life support calls. communication is a high challenge.
Here is kind of important in life.
It is, and it's fascinating how people are just not always well, especially now, the next generation
Yes, the
on
cell phones. Yep.
devices and actually having one-on-one conversations.
Yeah, you go somewhere public, like standing in line at the grocery store to eating in a restaurant, look around, and what percentage of people are doing this? You know, they've got this going. They're not interacting with anyone around them, even over dinner. You know, I've watched.
Yeah.
My wife and I were out for dinner, and it was like a family dinner, and I think everybody, mom, dad, and 2-3 kids, they're all doing this, and nobody's talking to each other at family time. It's like, phew.
Yeah, and who is doing that? And that, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes. Well, but it ties into, for me, it still ties into bringing joy into life.
Right. Because
Right? It's like
if what you're doing is interesting enough in that moment to engage the people you're around, then that's what you want.
Yeah.
It's like even though the bright shiny object on the phone may be distracting for a kid, the parent can teach the kid how to be present in the real world.
And how to get through life's struggles. The small ones, which can almost be more of a problem in some ways than the really big major calamities.
Yeah.
You know, Hurricane Ian hits Florida. Okay, all hands on deck, right? But give me a paper cut that's bugging me for several days, and all of a sudden I'm yelling at somebody because they're not giving me change fast enough at the grocery store.
Right.
Or something crazy, something unconnected like that. But it's how to it seems that makes it easier to get through life's challenges, life's speed bumps, the big calamities. Does that also help with avoiding those really, really dark directions where it just seems hopeless?
Well, mindset is everything, because you can be at the effect of whatever's going on, or you can be at cause, meaning you can take control over the situation. And if you're always, with the hurricane, we can have a discussion of like who caused the hurricane, but the hurricane happened.
Yeah.
And it wasn't intending to take out that house and knock down that business. It's a hurricane. How do you react to it? You could say, oh, my house is destroyed and woe is me and everything is lost and I'm a victim. Or it's like, okay, I need to rebuild. I need to call this person. I need to take care of this. I need to find a place to live in the meantime. The approach to it. Now, it's not to say that in that moment, everyone is going to be emotionally
Sure.
ready.
Well, again,
to
it's back
do
to what
that.
you said earlier. It's not ignoring the situation. It's not ignoring the emotion that comes along with it. It's just not.
But it's
my
what
dad
it's
used to tell me,
how
it's like, don't sit in it. When it hits the fan, don't sit in it.
And how do you respond to it? Because it's the response is what matters, and that's what you have control over, at least most of the time.
Yes. Well, but it's being part of a first response team or doing, or a volunteer group that's helping in a situation like that. It's the ability to find the humor in the moments and have the banter back and forth while doing unpleasant work.
Right.
Makes a huge difference. I've experienced being on teams where we've worked hard. I mean, we worked so exhausted at the end of the day, and it was a good exhausted. Right? I know what it feels like to go to bed at night feeling completely I put it all on the table that day, and I've got a smirk as I'm drifting off to sleep, as opposed to I've had one of those days where I'm chasing my tail all day long and I am just wiped out and can't wait to get to sleep. If nothing else, just to end that day so we can start the next one over. And that's a completely different feeling. That it's de-energized versus energized, as crazy as that might seem.
I understand. And a lot of that, almost all of that, comes from how people respond, how people are reacting in the moment, and what their emotional intelligence is, so to speak, and how their mindset is, and how they're approaching the problem. Because you could have two teams doing exactly the same work and get totally different results. And even in the same family, there can be twins that biologically are identical, yet and grew up in the same place, in the same house, and have completely different experiences on life and go in completely different directions. And so
One's constantly running from the dragons and the other one's laughing them down.
Exactly.
It reminds me of a science fiction. I'm watching The Time. I promised we're running a little bit over. I promise not to keep you too much longer. I want to respect your time. Years and years ago, I read a science fiction book, and the key to the hero winning in the battle he was fighting with the bad guys in that particular story was literally to laugh them down, because it took away their power.
Yeah, it disarms people.
It disarms people. It disarms the emotion of the situation too. So that having that part of what I've been hearing in our conversation, and we're talking about with being able to deal with the dragons and build joy into life, experience joy in life, is that ability to take the joy in life takes the power out of the things that cause us emotional harm.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it. And giving you the power to do what you need to do.
Yes.
In a more fun way.
Wow, we're just barely scratching. I'm loving this conversation. We're barely scratching the surface.
Well, we'll have to talk again sometime.
I would love to. As you're watching this, here we've got this. We'll put it in the notes and comments as well. joystealingdragons.com. You can get in. There's an assessment there.
There's a quiz.
So
it's a quiz. A quiz to find out which of the dragons is most active in your life right now and what to do about it, so that you can start taming these dragons in your life right away.
Awesome. Linda, thank you so much for the time today and the conversation about the dragons. This has been great. I had some other questions I was going to ask you, like, you know what? This is great. This is good stuff. Just leave it be. We'll have to do this again because there's so much more that we can talk about.
It's been a blast.
And I appreciate how you're modeling what you're talking about. This has been a fun conversation.
It has. Well, thank you. I appreciate you inviting me here.
It's really an honor. And as you're watching this, go to joystealingdragons.com for a quiz on which of the 5 dragons is causing you is doing battle with you right now, and what can you do to begin to fight back and do something about that in your life. Linda Shively, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm Wolf. This has been Wolf's Watch. Thank you for watching this. We appreciate you being here with us. And, if you didn't get your questions in, if you're watching this on replay, put your questions in the comments. We keep track of that. And my commitment to you is we will get your questions answered. And as always, thanks for being part of Wolf's Watch. This is 21st Century Live Television, live and interactive. And we will see you on the trail.